Greetings and welcome back to the 2021 Mennonite Disaster Service Annual Celebration, formerly known as the All-Unit Meeting. We hope you enjoyed our previous session of worship and celebration. I am Wayne Stucky, and with my wife Carole, our past Region 3 Board Co-Chair. This session is a time for reporting and storytelling. And to begin with, we will have a Board of Directors report. I would like to introduce Ross Miller, MDS Binational Board Chair.
Hello everyone, my name is Ross Miller. I'm Chairman of the Board of Directors and Board of Delegates, and I am coming to you with the Board Report. Who would have known after Goshen last year what 2020 would bring? Wow, what a crazy year. So many changes. But we know that God has not changed. What a joy that is. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And we just praise His name and thank you for His goodness and grace and mercy. I'd like to share with you our mission and vision statement. These are the statements that help guide our work as boards. The mission statement is Mennonite Disaster Service is a volunteer network of Anabaptist churches that responds in Christian love to those affected by disasters in Canada and the United States. And while the main focus is on cleanup, repair, and rebuilding homes, this service touches lives and nurtures hope, faith, and wholeness. What a great mission statement. Our vision statement, too, is to inspire and equip every Anabaptist congregation to respond in Christian love with volunteers to those affected in disasters. What a great opportunity to spread the good news of Jesus Christ as we come alongside these individuals as they are affected by disasters. These have not changed. Our mission and vision statements have not changed. Our call is to be the hands and feet of Jesus as we spread the good news in word and in deed. These are statements that guide us, that direct us, and sometimes we have to ask, are we drifting from these? As these requests come, do they fit our mission and vision statement? These statements are very important. There are two different boards. There's the Board of Delegates and there's the Board of Directors. And these boards deal with governance issues, policies, bylaws, and so on. And in my board report here, I want to give you a little bit of picture of what these two different boards do. So let's start with the Board of Delegates. Who is on the Board of Delegates? Who are these people? The four possibilities you see: representatives from conferences or denominations, at-large members, the ROC or the RBC. Which of those is not on the Board of Delegates? And if you picked ROC, you are correct. That is an operational person out in the field. The other three are a part of the Board of Delegates. The Board of Delegates meets once a year. There's conference calls in between the Board of Directors and Board of Delegates, and each Board of Delegate person is partnered with somebody on the Board of Directors. There's about 30 people on the Board of Delegates, and there's representatives from all over Canada and the United States. So you may ask, well, what do they do? What's their task? So this next slide gives 4 different things that they may do. So look those over. 4 different things. Which one of those do they not do? Which one of those does the Board of Delegates not do? And if you look, we do not line up workers at the MDS sites. We don't do that. That's operations. The staff does that. The boards do not do that. But the other 3 we do. We promote MDS mission and vision. We approve bylaw changes. We represent MDS to our constituents, as there's people from conferences, denominations, different parts of the country, Canada, US. These are our hands and feet out in the field, feeding back to us as boards. Other things we do, we of course attend and participate in meetings, vote on recommendations from the nominating committee, vote on all amendments and bylaws and articles of incorporation, any changes that happen. So last year at Goshen, some of the things we did is we had a time of where do we see Jesus on the work site? Oh, that was so good. That was so good. Just to see lives being changed, all for God's glory and in the name of Jesus. We talked about all unit changes, which there's been some changes and even changes in the name. Staff reports, financial reports, getting counsel on different issues. And so it's been very, very helpful. The Board of Delegates is very helpful in our work to guide us and direct us in all that we do. Now, out of the Board of Delegates, then comes a group called the Board of Directors. And they do the work of the organization, the work of the Board of Delegates in between meetings. So the Board of Directors is about 14 people, again, from all over US and Canada, and we meet about 4 times a year. So this next slide is a listing of 5 different individuals, and I want you to look at that list. Who is not a part of the Board of Directors? So as you look at that list, there's 2 people there that are not a part of the Board of Directors. So I'm sure you'll be able to recognize that Rocky Miller, who is longtime chair, he is not a part of the Board of Directors right now. And Patrick Roy, of course, is not either. I believe he's a famous hockey guy from Canada, if I remember right. So he's not a part of the Board of Directors either. So I'm going to show you now a slide from Goshen of the Board of Directors and Board of Delegates. So that slide's going to come up, and you can kind of see all the individuals that make up the Board of Directors and Board of Delegates. And of course, if you're on the Board of Directors, you're also a Board of Delegates. So pretty good looking group there, isn't it? Yes. You see that kind of backlighting and everything like that. So there's a good picture there. Good picture of who is serving for you. Now the question then you may ask is, what's the task? What do the Board of Directors do? 4 times a year? Wow. What do they do? Well, this next slide shows you 4 different things. So look that over. What is one of the things that the Board of Directors does not do? And of course, you're going to be able to pick out, I'm sure, that we do not pick the places where MDS sets up sites. That's, again, staff. We're not in operations. That is not our task. But we do, as you see on that slide, we approve the annual budget. We appoint, oversee, and annually evaluate the executive director. We elect corporate officers. Some other things we do, of course, we support the mission of MDS. Strategic planning, we do a lot of work on strategic planning. Public accountability, monitor financial and human resources, nominate people to serve on the nominating committee. We work closely with the Board of Delegates, and we are the Board of Final Appeal in personnel matters. Now we have various committees that we use to help carry out this work. It's a lot of work, a lot of things going on, and so we use committees to help process things that they then bring to the Board of Directors. This next slide shows you 4 different committees. One of those is not a committee that we have. So if you look those over very quickly, I'm sure you're going to be able to see that Make Do Somehow is not one of our committees. That's a big slogan for us, right? MDS, make do somehow, but that is not one of our committees. Our committees, finance, you see on your slide, HR, risk management, those are pretty self-explanatory. We also have a joint ministries agreement, which is helps us nurture that connection with US and Canada. And then we have the governance committee, which of course looks at a lot of governance issues. We've been doing a lot of work on governance issues, what governs the body, what's important, and how we can guide and direct. So some of the examples of things we've worked on this last year: relationship of the ROC to the RBC, strategic planning, a lot of work on that, job descriptions for committees, policies, how do we access those, all unit meeting, evaluation of the executive director, mission drift, making sure we keep to our vision, and on the tasks go. So that gives you a little picture of what these 2 boards do. Now there's a lot of transition coming, a lot of transition due to terms expiring, and so those individuals who are coming off the Board of Directors are Katrina Miller, Nick Ham, Glenn Kaufman, Harold Friesen, Roger Sharp, and Wayne and Carole Stucky. People coming off the Board of Delegates, Wayne Schrock, Mark Shibukawa, Jane Slaybaugh, and Esther Buck. So thank you to these individuals. They're your representatives. They're your voice. and they've put in hours and hours and hours representing you on these two boards. And I just would like to say thank you, thank you, thank you to each of them for the service that they have done. We have a lot of new people coming on, and it's exciting, very exciting. So directors coming on, Gerald Dick, Henry Warkentin from Canada, Michele WhiteEagle, Manny Flood, and Wayne Yoder from the U.S. They'll be coming on the board of directors. Those individuals coming on the board of delegates, David Brubaker, Henry Schmidt from Canada, Margarita Bloodworth, Aaron Groff, Karen Shelley Smoker, and Elizabeth Troyer Miller from the U.S. And if I butchered your name, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will apologize, and when we meet face to face, we'll get it corrected. So there'll be a lot of changes on the two boards. But again, we celebrate the one who does not change, and that is God and Jesus Christ. We thank God for the many ways He has blessed MDS this year. It is amazing. We have amazing staff. We have amazing volunteers, amazing people serving. It's just to see the hand of God just touches me in such a special way. We praise His name as we continue to spread the good news that God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him will not perish, but have eternal life. You have a great day. This is your official board report. God bless.
Thank you, Ross, for your report and your leadership as binational board chair. Reporting and storytelling is a way of connecting you with the activities of MDS and our volunteers. It gives us a window into the unexpected opportunities and unexpected blessings encountered by MDS and our volunteers. It can awaken future generations to their potential, ways they themselves can connect our history and our values. And now we will have reports from each of our regions.
Most of us will remember the unexpected disruptions to our lives and work in 2020. In Region 2, we had a number of projects ready to go, rebuilding work following hurricanes in 2018, tornadoes in 2019. We knew in 2020 there would be new projects because floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, fires are expected in any given year. We were not expecting 30 named storms in the Atlantic, and we were not expecting a pandemic that would affect all of us, everywhere. Having to stop our rebuilding was unexpected. Learning how to restart our work was unexpected. How to be the hands and feet of Jesus when our mouths and noses posed unseen threats was unexpected. As a result, this past year has given us opportunities to slow down, to find Jesus among us again and in new ways. We have had the opportunity to learn there's more than one way to build a house. We have had the opportunity to learn there's more one way to run a base camp, to enter a far-off community, to hold a meeting and to make new relationships, and to learn from one another, to go about our work. In all of these things, we have been given the opportunity to discover Jesus anew and to discover the unexpected blessing of Jesus in our lives when life is not normal nor expected. It has been an unexpected blessing to be able to work at all this year. It has been an unexpected blessing to have to trust each other to experiment with restarting jobs and projects and learn from one another. It has been an unexpected blessing to have friends and family recover from illness. And it has been an unexpected blessing to find new ways of gathering, of grieving and mourning the death of friends and family, and receive the expressions of love that are found in extra efforts required to comfort and to fellowship under these constraints. What follows are some of the opportunities we were blessed to receive. Mike Dillaber, our project coordinator in Centranella, Alabama, tells of this unexpected opportunities and unexpected blessings. On our second day, we were removing a couple large trees in Mount Vernon, Alabama. The group leader and I were traveling between 4 different work teams, and it was about 4:30, and we were chasing volunteers back to base. I looked at my phone and saw that I had missed 6 calls from one work group in quick succession. Uh-oh, that's not good. I quickly called the number back and found out that the smaller of the 2 trees had fallen opposite the direction planned and had taken out a number of power lines, affecting several hundred residences. No one was injured, for which we were grateful. Anthony Zimmerman and I arrived and waited as the homeowner called the local power company, after hours, of course. The first to arrive was an engineer supervisor who asked for our business card. I told him we were volunteers and didn't have business cards. He was none too pleased. Soon the linemen arrived, and it was obvious they were not happy either. Did I mention that we had the mayor, a couple of councilmen, the chief of police, and a number of townspersons also show up? The worst of it was that we still had to return to the scene of the crime the next day and cut the very large damaged tree that was actually leaning in the direction of the power lines we had taken out the previous evening. Well, the next day, you can imagine, we had an entourage of public officials and locals watching our every move. We took our time, used safety ropes and slings and every wedge we all owned, and hooked up the MDS Ford 250 and a rented Bobcat skid steer, and the tree went the way that we planned for it to go in response to many unspoken prayers. The crowd cheered, and much bonding and trust began to develop between MDS, the city, and the community. Now fast forward one week, and Anthony and I met a young mother in a neighboring community called Centranella. We were followed by 3 small children as we walked their property. The homeowners obviously had tried to do everything they could to clean up the lot, and yet the mother mentioned she couldn't let her children out because of all the dangers and the very large trees scattered in the yard. We agreed to make the yard kid-friendly once again. And there was a massive red oak that was down across the driveway. We planned to set the big stump back into the hole left by the roots. Then we noticed power lines running through that hole. I made a comment about the power company and the men that we had angered the previous week. And the mom told us that her husband worked for the power company and thought he'd be able to get a crew to move it for us. At this point, I realized that I had been harboring some resentment towards those men who came to fix our mistake earlier in the week and treated us with little patience and without the grace that I thought we deserved. We signed her up nonetheless. Later that week, a local church invited our whole group to dinner. And it turns out that that little family we worked for attended that church. And when Anthony went in, he noticed that the lineman we had met at after hours in Mount Vernon was in the room. It turned out it was his home in Centranella where we had been working. He and Anthony had a good conversation. And that little family kept bringing casseroles, treats, and even brought work gloves for the volunteers. Their gratitude became evident, and I knew that God was moving when the lineman showed up at the base with ice cream. And our eyes met. We never spoke to one another. We didn't need to. It always surprises me how God shows himself in those situations, and often within our own failings. I'm not sure what God was doing with that lineman, but I do know it was something. And I do know that I had an attitude adjustment that served me well as our project continued to move forward. I'm forever grateful for the opportunity to serve through the ministry of MDS, and I'm grateful for all the friends that we've made along the way. And I became good friends with the mayor of the city, the councilman assigned to us as our liaison, after meeting them at the downed power lines. Thank you, Mike, for sharing that story with us and for all the work that you do in your unit. And from Alabama, we go back to Eastern Ohio now to learn more about the adaptive housing pilot project between Regions 1 and 2 this past year.
My name is Morris Stutzman. We are in Strasburg, Ohio. We're building what's called the modular home concept for MDS, which means we build the entirety of the house here, and then we transfer it approximately 200 miles to its final location. Initially, we were going to do a PHP project, which would involve 2 homes in a parking lot in 2 days, but COVID showed up, and that kind of put the ending to a lot of good planning. So, not to be defeated, we decided, well, is there a different way we can do this? Minimizing volunteer contact, both here and at the site of construction. So we came up with this idea, why don't we just build the actual home here? We kept the same people involved from the PHP project. Everybody thought it was a good idea, and here we are. It's a combination of volunteer organizations, Disaster Aid Ohio, Mennonite Disaster Service, local units, Eastern Ohio unit, local regions, Region 1 and Region 2, and then the local unit in Region 1 would be the Shenandoah Valley region because they cover West Virginia.
Thank you, Morris. Let's pick up the story now in Region 1.
I am Rodney Burkholder, and I have been coordinating activities in West Virginia for the past 10 years with Region 1. This year, when COVID hit, I became a part of the steering committee for the Adaptive Home Program and enjoyed working with DAO in Region 2 to develop a plan and implement bringing 2 modular homes back to West Virginia to help out 2 more homeowners. We had had some interesting times with Billy Paxton and Lynn Shear visiting on their home sites and just having discussions and realizing the trauma of this flood that took their homes happened 3 years ago, and they had given up hope on ever getting a new home. Jim Martin and Rusty Watterson headed to Ohio, and they needed to make 2 separate trips because they could only move 1 house in the form of 1/2 connected to each rig. And so they had a big time learning to know the folks in Ohio, the crews that built the homes, hitched up to the houses and headed back down the interstate. First thing that happened on the interstate was a flat tire less than 10 miles out of town. Stopped and fixed the tire and had no other issues until we arrived in West Virginia, but the time it took to hitch up and travel took all day, so they arrived in West Virginia in the evening and parked the rigs for a later transfer over to the building location.
Hello, I'm Sam Miller, and I would like to talk with you a little bit about our work in West Virginia. I am one of the coordinators of the West Virginia MDS projects, and the year 2020 has been quite an amazing year. We have built several houses and several bridges, and all of this has created a lot of buzz and a lot of work, and I was glad to be having a front row seat in these adventures. I was able to help build a bridge in near Whitesoffer Springs with the help of a fine group of folks from Pennsylvania. They did the job in 5 days, and we had a great time doing it, and the bridge was certified and is completed, and if you will look at the pictures, they are fairly dramatic. The other dramatic work that we have done has to do with the 2 modular homes that were built in Ohio and were then subsequently hauled to West Virginia. The first location was on Sandy Creek near Clendenin, West Virginia. It's a neighborhood where 14 families live, and the area is accessed by a 1-lane bridge known as Big Blue. This bridge carries cars and pickups, but no one knows how much more or for how long it will be actually viable for crossing. For a number of years, a river crossing has been used by locals whenever a dump truck or tractor or backhoe is needed. The problem at Sandy Creek was that it silts over at the river crossing area, and so as it hadn't been used for several years, we had asked Mike Miller, a local excavator, to clear the crossing for our use. Generally, Sandy Creek flows with a depth of 6 to 14 inches, changing daily depending on rainfall. Our entourage of 2 semi-trucks and several pickups arrived from Ohio at 4 p.m. on September 15th, and the movers had a goal of moving at least one half of Billy Paxton's house over the river and through the woods before dark.
Jim Martin walked the entire distance into Mrs. Shear's home location and carefully watched for overhanging branches, poles, whatever, and signaled to Rusty if he needed to stop, slow down, move the home from left to right.
All the neighbors along the way were out wishing as well. Meanwhile, Billy stayed on her own property in her car because she just couldn't handle the drama.
Rusty at one point had 2 joystick boxes in his hand at the same time, and he had hitched the home up to a diesel-powered remote-controlled mule, and he could move it in and out, up and down, and he could steer the axles left and right.
Thanks to the remarkable robot, we made it onto Billy Paxton's property and finally placed each side of the house into the exact location, even though these things weighed each about 25,000 pounds. That was just day one.
After the 2 halves of the home were in position over the footers that were previously poured, Jim Martin and his crew went to work and fastened the home together and elevated it at the proper level required for floodplain requirements in preparation for the Amish crews to come in and build the cinder block foundation walls under the house. And when that was done and the concrete cured in the walls, Jim came back and lowered the house onto the walls. The second home was also ready for delivery.
The Lynn Shear house was on a different location. The conditions related to her moving involved transporting her house down several miles of country road where Jim Martin and his crew spent a day trimming trees to make way for the house to pass through.
And the Shear house in Clow, West Virginia was a part of a program that was funded by a grant from the government called Ries, West Virginia. West Virginia VOAD volunteers and staff came in and did a considerable amount of the work on the Shear house after we had the walls built and had the home lowered. And it was so amused one day, Mrs. Shear called me, "I've got a question." And I said, "What's that, Mrs. Shear?" And she said, "Have I lost the Mennonites?" I assured her that no, you have not lost the Mennonites, that we were working together with West Virginia VOAD and they were doing some of the work here to finish, but we would be back to make sure all final details were in order. She is now in her home and very, very joyous.
She had waited for years, and this house was an answer to many of her prayers. She made sure that she thanked each worker, showing her heartfelt appreciation.
The Paxton home, on the other hand, is funded by United Methodist Committee on Relief, UMCOR. We did not have an assigned time period to finish the home. We are continuing. It is very close to finished.
Several days ago, I had the privilege of escorting Billy into her house for the first time. The large front stairs had no rails, but she braved the steps with me as I tried to hold her steady. She loves the cabinets. This house will be just right for her. From the moment she met Gid Yoder and Natalie Kaufman, she knew there would be a very good house in store for her. She's been waiting for 4 years, so a few more days will make it all worth the wait. She is now greatly relieved, knowing she will move into an exceptional house built by exceptional folks. Thanks to all.
Hello, I'm Wayne Stucky. My wife Carole and I are past Region 3 Board Co-Chair. During this challenging year, volunteers in Region 3 have faithfully responded to those affected by disasters. We are blessed to have great leadership with the Board of Directors and the Executive Committee who give leadership to the region. We are thankful for our valuable staff resource, Jeff Kohler, Region Operations Coordinator, who assists with investigations, project development, and unit support. We are also thankful for Tom Smucker, Hurricane Harvey coordinator, whose leadership has had a tremendous impact with the response in Texas. And we are thankful for our church contact people who promote MDS in their church with presentations, bulletin announcements, and call for volunteers. Region 3 units meet regularly and are continually working to be prepared to respond. Nebraska purchased a new tool trailer, and many units added new tools and replaced broken tools. Units are the lifeblood of MDS and continually need leadership volunteers. If you are inspired to serve, please contact your local MDS unit. You can find contact information on our MDS website. Due to COVID restrictions and concerns, our units are working with local emergency management and community organizations for local response opportunities. This has worked well for daily projects where they leave early in the morning, work throughout the day, and return home at night. The Montana unit connects with a local community organization called Assist and have helped people build ramps, repair a ceiling that was falling down, and help clean up a yard after a storm. The 2019 spring floods devastated many communities in the Midwest, affecting farmers, destroying crops, livestock, damaging homes and communities along the water's path. The Nebraska unit coordinated volunteers and equipment to help Lowell replace a fence destroyed by floodwaters. 18 volunteers left early Saturday morning, replaced 1/4 mile of fence, and went home late afternoon. This does not sound like much, but it was an essential part of Lowell's farming operation. Also, part of the 2019 spring floods, the Iowa unit repaired homes in Pacific Junction, Iowa, a little town in southwest Iowa that was underwater for nearly a month and now struggling to recover. Volunteers would get up early in the morning to drive 3 to 4 hours to Pacific Junction to repair Phyllis, Jack, and Kevin's home. They would stay 2 to 3 days and then drive back home. Phyllis's daughter commented, "Why would anyone drive clear across the state to help someone they don't even know?" Ted and the Iowa Amish were a godsend. Ted Redding, Iowa unit coordinator, said, "We consider anyone in the state of Iowa who needs our help our neighbor." Blessings received by homeowners and volunteers. 2019 spring storms and flooding devastated a little community in Avon, Oklahoma, with damaged roofs and homes. Preparing for this response, volunteers repaired a house that we used to accommodate volunteers. Bill Mast and his wife, Betty, were instrumental in directing this project. Bill said, "We lived right in the middle of the community, attended all 3 of the churches, and really bonded with the whole community." On this project, Bill also provided training for MDS's year-long volunteers. During the team's 8-week stay, they did drywall, flooring, cabinet installation, trim, painting, ceramic tile, roofing, and cement work, a good variety of tasks completed for 5 families. Shaylee was able to keep restoring her home when MDS shut down projects due to COVID. While Bill respected the shutdown, he taught Taylor, Tylee, and Shaylee how to lay the Avant floor, and the girls continued to lay over 1,300 square feet of flooring in their refurbished home. Nona Roach, Avant resident, said, "God has blessed us by MDS coming to Avant, and we are certainly going to miss Bill and Betty. We wish they would stay forever." The Kansas unit worked in Eureka, Kansas. Eureka unfortunately had 2 tornadoes hit this town 2 years apart, 2016 and 2018. With excellent leadership, the Kansas unit worked with the Long-Term Recovery Committee and the Unmet Needs Committee for both disasters. Volunteers were organized, a new home built after the first tornado, and many repaired roofs, completing the work this last summer. This project was unique in that a lot of work was done on weekends, allowing more volunteers to serve without impacting their work schedule. Last summer, in preparation for college opening, the Kansas unit helped Tabor College by cleaning rooms and installing bunk beds in a wing of a vacant hospital in anticipation of quarantining students. And at Heston College, The goal was to convert 13 men's mod common areas into single rooms to comply with social distancing guidelines. The Minnesota unit and local church helped small minority business owners repair storefronts in Minneapolis, Minnesota after the George Floyd incident. A couple out-of-the-box unit projects. Skilled volunteers from Colorado, Kansas, and New Mexico continued to help Rocky Mountain Mennonite Camp with fire mitigation by cutting and removing beetle-infested killed trees. They have removed over 300 trees, some up to 90 feet tall. This has been an annual region project since 2013. The Colorado unit also has helped the Boulder Mennonite Church and Brenda Fox retrofit an older Airstream travel trailer into a mobile unit called Prayer Stream to provide spiritual and emotional care after disasters. And the MDS search and rescue team continues to recover victims of drowning, cliffside falls, and hypothermia throughout Arkansas and sometimes in other states. The team performs about 15 rescues or recoveries each year, with most occurring in the summer months when hikers and boaters visit the beautiful Ozark Mountains. Now I would like to have Cleo Coop give us an update on the disaster management program at Heston College in Heston, Kansas.
Greetings from Heston College in Heston, Kansas. I am Cleo Cope, the Disaster Management Program Director. The Disaster Management Program is a unique partnership between Mennonite Disaster Service and Heston College. The Disaster Management Program exists to develop leadership abilities in managing disaster response, emphasizing Christ-like service to socially vulnerable population groups. Since the program's beginning in 2005, there have been just over 85 graduates. Students are introduced to a wide variety of career opportunities in the field of disaster-related careers. The program has also expanded to include fire and EMT through a partnership with the city of Heston, Kansas. While studying at Heston College, students are able to gain practical experience by responding to calls through the local fire department and EMT department, studying for coursework at the college, as well as earn their national certification, which goes with them after they are graduated. The pictures you've been viewing are of students who have been responding to an MDS Kansas project in the city of Eureka, building small houses for Habitat for Humanity can recycling project, and painting of a garage for a fundraiser for the Kansas MDS unit. These practical hands-on experiences prepare students for the 8-week MDS summer field experience that the students participate in. Heston College looks forward to continuing this unique partnership in the years ahead. We are thankful for the generous contributions and support of this disaster management program at Heston College. Thank you very much.
Unexpected opportunities, unexpected blessings. An old Chinese proverb tells it perfectly. If you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. If you want happiness for a lifetime, help somebody. We celebrate our MDS volunteers who continually amaze us with passion to serve, compassion for those affected by disaster, and servant hearts when needed. You can hear them say, "Here am I, Lord, send me." We praise and honor God, whom we serve, and who simply asks us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with him.
My name is Michele WhiteEagle, and I'm the newly appointed board chair for Region 4. You may be asking where the name White Eagle comes from. My husband is a Nez Perce tribal member here in Idaho. And in a year when we have found ourselves in unexpected places, I have found myself on an unexpected journey. I've been asked to share a little bit about my journey before I share the rest of our report for Region 4. So, in 2015, Kamiah, Idaho, where I reside, experienced wildfires that destroyed 75 homes. And you can see Kamiah and the surrounding area behind me. When the fires came and destroyed the homes, I felt a compelling of the Lord to get involved with the long-term recovery, and I became a case manager and eventually the vice chair of that board. Through that experience, I had my first encounter with Mennonite Disaster Service as they came to build homes in our area. Through that, an invitation came to serve with MDS as a volunteer in Saipan. After much thought and consideration and prayer, I agreed and began my journey as an MDS volunteer. And while I enjoyed serving on the project, swinging the hammer, using the saws, I thought in order to really be able to serve with my skill set, I needed to pursue a different avenue. In 2017, I was given the opportunity to go to the all-unit meeting and share the reports for Kamei and Saipan for Region 4. That was just an experience that solidified a love for MDS and the volunteers who come together. Shortly after that all-unit meeting, my own home flooded. And when Region 4 caught word of that through a little birdie, they sent volunteers to help rehab and rebuild our home. So I have experienced working with MDS as a long-term recovery person, and I've experienced working with MDS as a volunteer and also as a recipient. So my heart to serve solidified getting involved further in leadership. And in 2018, I applied and began taking all of the training and mentorship program to become a director. I had prayed much about this and really felt that it was the calling of the Lord that I would serve as a project director. So it came as quite a surprise last July when I got the call that I had been nominated for the board chair position. It was not something I was seeking. I had thought maybe at one point I would meet Idaho unit and see about getting involved there, but certainly had never considered anything along these lines. But the unexpected opportunity to serve as the Region 4 board chair has already been a blessing to me, and I believe that God is going to use it in amazing ways because He is an amazing God. That leads me to think of Ephesians 3:20, where it says God will do exceedingly abundantly beyond what we can ask or think. In 2020, our units and our region were able to serve on multiple projects. In January through March, we had a project going in Ukiah where 4 homes were built, and in Saipan, where I heard upwards of 49 houses were worked on. It was a fast and furious project, so I was told it was difficult to keep track from the project director serving there. Also in 2020, there's been an ongoing investigation about the upcoming project in Paradise, California, where over 13,000 homes were destroyed. The California unit has been working hard on revamping their tool trailer and updating scaffolding and other tools so that we can ensure safety on the project sites. In Oregon, there's been an investigation of the Umatilla flooding. In Arizona, thankfully they don't have many disasters there, so it's been rather quiet. In Idaho, volunteers worked on Corpus Christi House, which is a day center for homeless people in Boise, Idaho. You can find more information about that on their page within the MDS website. And in Washington, they're working on a project just outside of Leavenworth at Camp Camarack. That camp is the camp for the Washington Mennonite Fellowship Group, and they're building a staff house to increase housing for full-time staff. For Region 4 projects, in addition to Saipan, we also worked in Alaska. And in Alaska, we had 6 new builds and assisting 2 other homeowners completing projects in their homes. It's been a joy to work on those projects, but something more exciting came out of Alaska. And I have several volunteers that will be joining us to give a report of what unexpected blessings came when we went to serve in Willow, Alaska.
Hi, this is Matt Krieb from East Bend Mennonite Church in Fisher, Illinois, Central Illinois. I went to Willow, Alaska in late July. Because this is just one of the most thrilling, worshipful experiences of my life. We first met Keith he didn't understand this concept, why we would leave our homes, take our vacation time to go to a distant land to work our tails off. For what? He couldn't make the connection as to what is your reward. We're working there this beautiful week, and we're working on 2 other sites, putting more energy into these other sites. And so it is Friday. We've got the other 2 houses under roof. And Keith's house, we had the foundation and the floor set and the insulation in the floor. This is critical that we had to tarp everything to make sure you couldn't get that insulation wet. I'm thinking in my head, again, worldly thinking in my head, there's just no way. The rain is coming. I can see it. It's just hours away. And we kind of put it out there, guys, it's either time to clean up or we're going to make a big push and try to get this under roof tonight. I can see Keith, his demeanor changing. He was like, why are you still going? I said something to the effect of, to Keith, it's like, you couldn't pay us to do this, Keith. This is only out of worship to our God because he has done something great here. We are his hands and feet. And Keith didn't speak much after that. I felt like there's a connection there. He's waking up to something greater. And so the energy is just fantastic.
And so I started asking him about his relationship with Christ. And he says, well, I believe in God, but I have a lot of things I have to work out. What do you have to work out? And who told you have to work something out? He said, well, the church, I go to church. I said, oh, good. He said, there's things that I have to stop doing. The truth is, you have to do nothing. And in fact, there's nothing you can do to accept Christ and the grace and salvation that he provides us. So we got together after work, sat down, opened the Bible, and started going through scripture. Nobody's ever showed me this. And I said, these are not my words. These are the words of the Lord. And these are his promises. Now, he doesn't promise to change your situation, your circumstance you're in right now, Keith. But he does promise to transform you, to transform your heart by accepting him as your Savior. And he said, well, what does that mean? I said, he transformed my heart. That's why I'm here. So we prayed. He accepted the Lord. You know, the thing is I was questioning too that night. I was thinking about it. I said, I wonder if he really accepted Christ in his heart.
It's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and we're finally putting paper on, and it's raining. It started to rain. It's like, oh, we're coming in the home stretch. We just got to get this thing under paper. We're almost there. The storm is going to rain all weekend. We have to get this done. It's like God gave us all the goods, all the hurdles that we needed to get over. God supplied the materials and the energy and the safety. We completed the task. We mop up the water, and there's a little bit of celebration, like, yes, yes, yes. And Keith, I couldn't tell if some of the guys if it was just water running down their face or tears. It's hard to say. I can't speak for them, but this was one of the most worshipful experiences in my life, to see God come through in such an incredible way. And so we ended that day at about 9:30 that evening. We all wrapped our hands around each other and prayed in a circle over Keith for his healing, and that his home would be truly a home where Jesus would be a part of it.
I believe with all my heart that he is being transformed right now as we speak, and he's on that path. He had a hard life and, difficult situation he's in. Of course, after the fire, it took everything. But those of us coming in just showed him the light of Christ and the love that's there for him. And he responded. It was absolutely amazing to watch that. Take the time to meet the family, to get to know them, hear their story. MDS will always have projects. No matter what, there's always be disasters, there'll always be projects. And that's what Jesus is telling us, to make that time. Michele said, let's go do a house blessing and let's anoint the house. It was just a glorious moment.
That day, that experience, bringing Keith's house together, is kind of like the consummate picture of what MDS stands for. Rebuilding hope. We are building bridges. We are connecting not just the material, but we're connecting Christ to those who need it most. And Keith is just the perfect picture of what MDS stands for.
Thank you to those volunteers who shared that amazing story. That's why we're all here, right? To serve others, to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and see lives touched. So thank you for listening to the Region 4 report. I just bless you all.
2020 was quite a year for MDS Canada. Unlike in previous years when we send hundreds of volunteers south and do major projects at home, the pandemic closed the border to travel to the U.S. and caused us to shut down almost all of our operations. The exceptions were a couple of local cleanup projects, along with building one house using an RV-style project that followed strict health and safety protocols. During that unprecedented time, the speed and agility with which the board and the leadership were able to pivot was very impressive. Through it all, they put safety and health of our volunteers and potential clients first. Before the pandemic struck, we were able to do some significant work in Ontario, as Nick will now explain.
Greetings from Ontario, Canada on behalf of the Ontario unit. The word unexpected in our MDS world is actually a way of life for us. The unexpected disaster, the unexpected call to help wherever God leads, and the unexpected blessings.
The Ottawa River between Ontario and Quebec, 800 miles long, is a major tributary of the St. Lawrence River. With over 50 controlled dams along its length, controlling water levels during heavy snow and rain seasons is a challenge. This river has surpassed record flood levels in 2017 and again in 2019. One of the homes MDS was asked to rebuild by the Long-Term Recovery Committee was for Bill Overton, a single man in his mid-60s, still working in road construction for a low wage, with his retirement plans dashed when he lost his modest home to flooding. The damage was not only from the 4 feet of water in his home not receding for a month, but also damage from wave action being on the wide part of the river. We were not sure why this had the highest priority, but we agreed to take it on, trusting God's leading. This rebuild, part of 5 other jobs, was started in mid-October 2019 and completed by the end of January, with over 100 volunteers responding and 500 volunteer days during these 3 months. Over half were 26-year-olds and younger. Our volunteers came from across Ontario, and as God always demonstrates His involvement, we had volunteers with the required skills at the right time, God's timing. Our Orthodox Mennonite brothers had the elevated house up in 2.5 days. Procuring long lead items like roof trusses, etc., and coordinating local trades all in this short time can only happen with God's leading. Bill was laid off from his work over winter, so he became a regular participant in his home construction. During this time, Bill, an introvert, shared about his situation and his life. Bill's hopelessness was turning around. By the time of our Christmas break, the drywall was up, and then Bill and his brother taped and finished the drywall over the Christmas break. Bill was anxious to move into his home. Bill had lived in a small tent on his property over the summer, then moved into a destroyed neighboring cottage until it was too cold, and then stayed with his sister 1 hour away, sleeping on her couch. Once his house had been insulated, we noticed a sleeping bag in one of the bedrooms. As a project director, one wants to explain to the volunteers why we are working on a particular home. I always state it is because God wants us to be here. We have been led to this particular client and may never know the impact we will leave. That's God's role. In Bill's case, he shared with us at his home dedication that MDS saved his life. Wow, that is major. Bill continued that remark, stating that if MDS had not come along, he would have gone back to drinking, something that he had stayed clear of for 40 years. But this loss from the disaster would have driven him back to drinking and probably to his early death. This service touches lives and nurtures hope, faith, and wholeness. To God be the glory. Unexpected opportunities, unexpected blessings.
One holdover from 2019 was the need to finish up a job in 70 Mile House, British Columbia. The pandemic made it challenging to do, but volunteers found a way to do it that was safe for all, as Harold is now going to tell us.
Greetings. My name is Harold Friesen, and I am the Mennonite Disaster Service Canada Board Chair. Here is a brief report on the MDS response in 70 Mile House, British Columbia, where I was a project coordinator. In July of 2017, Jim's house on Pressy Lake burned in the Elephant Hill fire. Here, Jim, the homeowner, is helping with the foundation blocks on his new home. Current pandemic prevention protocols were carefully followed. Here are two of the cooks, Susan Thiessen and Sandra Friesen, preparing one of the 3 full meals and 2 coffee breaks they served each day. Each volunteer and their cohort sat at their own table and had their food served to them by the cooks. I tried to fill my own water cup on one occasion and got my hand slapped. They were strict. Most of the volunteers came from the local British Columbia unit, along with a few from the neighboring Alberta unit. Most of the volunteers brought their RVs, and several came as day volunteers. We are thankful for the protection that our Heavenly Father provided. Fast forward to the home dedication. Here, one of the project directors, Henry, is giving Jim the keys to his new home. Here's the front of the new home, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow, 970 square feet. Here's the view from the road. Henry and Elizabeth Workington with Jim on the deck chair. Henry was one of the project directors and Elizabeth one of the cooks. Peter and Susan Thiessen. Peter was one of the project directors and Susan one of the cooks. The build on site took 46 calendar days from breaking ground to the home dedication. A good opportunity to glorify our Heavenly Father. I want to thank you folks on the MDS board, past and present, for your patience and love during my 6 years on the MDS board. It was an enjoyable ride as we worked at staying mission true. I appreciate the friendships with the many very different folks that I met during this time, passionate about Mennonite disaster service and willing to engage in kingdom work. Sandra and I live in the wonderful city of Calgary, Alberta, and should the opportunity to travel come your way, a great stop as you head into the Canadian Rockies.
Although we couldn't be active on the ground through our volunteers, we could still make a difference for those impacted by the disaster of the pandemic through one other resource: money. John will now explain how we did that.
When the pandemic struck last March, MDS Canada closed down immediately. When restrictions began to ease, the board decided to follow public health orders by suspending normal operations in order to keep volunteers and local communities safe. But while MDS Canada was closed down, needs in Canada continued to grow due to the pandemic. But what could we do to help? We couldn't send volunteers, but we had money. And there were groups on the front lines of the disaster that could use that resource, local congregations. And so we created the Spirit of MDS Fund. The goal of the fund was to provide grants to local churches responding to the pandemic in the spirit of MDS. From April to October, we provided 81 grants worth $102,000 to churches from Nova Scotia to BC. The money was used for things like food banks, meal programs, PPE, assistance for homeless people, technology for churches to help them connect with their members, and for personal care homes so seniors could stay in touch with family and friends. Let me tell you about a few of the recipients. The Scott Street Mennonite Brethren Church in St. Catharines, Ontario, used money from the fund to provide over 1,300 meals for families in their neighborhood. They also provided recipients with a word of encouragement and hope. The fund was also a great encouragement to the congregation itself. Said Pastor Rob Patterson, "It made us feel that we are part of the larger Mennonite cause, both in St. Catharines and around the world." In Vancouver, BC, Peace Mennonite Church on 52nd used money from the fund to assist a homeless man who shelters on the porch of their church every night. With help from the fund, they bought him camping equipment, including a new sleeping bag, a new mat, and a dry bag. Said Pastor Lydia Cutwell, "The homeless man was very grateful to have a warm sleeping bag and a more comfortable mat, and was especially happy about having another dry bag so his belongings wouldn't get wet when it rains." They also used money from the fund to buy a laptop for a refugee who suddenly needed to transition to online university theology classes. Said Cutwell, The refugee was very touched by the gift and is grateful to have a church community that attends not just to his spiritual needs, but to his practical needs as well. In Edmonton, Alberta, the South Sudanese Mennonite Church is made up of immigrants from that country. Due to the pandemic, many of them saw their salaries reduced and some lost jobs. This resulted in some people having trouble buying food and medications, paying rent, and making ends meet. The church used the grant to provide emergency assistance to people in the church and beyond. Said Pastor Reuben Tutt, the grant helped people pay their bills and gave hope to the whole congregation in this time of difficulty. It showed them there are those who care about them. He added, it was a blessing to our church and to the South Sudanese community in Edmonton in general. There are many other stories of how MDS was able to be of service in Canada during the pandemic through local congregations. Through the fund, we were able to come alongside these churches, helping them to help those impacted by the virus. Not only could we assist Canadians in practical ways, it also gave us a chance to develop new relationships with churches across the country. So even if we couldn't do our normal operations, we could still be the hands and feet of Jesus and do it through local churches in the spirit of MDS.
Along with these activities, the other significant event of the past year is a new partnership agreement with MDS in the U.S. The agreement was created to provide much-needed clarity for how the two organizations work together. It outlines who is responsible for what in Canada and in the U.S. This ensures we are consulting each other and working together in a way that recognizes both national contexts in which we work. While providing clarity for good working relationship, the agreement also reinforces just how deeply mutually dependent our organizations are. We in Canada would only be a small fraction of who we are without our partnership with all of MDS. That's a snapshot of MDS in Canada this past year. It is a privilege to be the hands and feet of Jesus in our country.
We hope these stories of region activities gave you some insight about MDS and the importance of MDS and volunteers who respond, rebuild, and restore. We hope they were informative and motivating, and we hope to see you as an MDS volunteer in the future. At our annual gathering, when we can gather together, we normally have workshops or training sessions. With this format, we decided to not have any virtual workshops. However, workshops and training resources are available on the MDS website. There are resources available for congregations. Our congregational partners are vital to providing quick response to disasters, supporting local communities, and recruiting support when needed. We appreciate your church's involvement and prayers as MDS seeks to assist people in need with Christian love. Whether you are a volunteer in unit leadership, or a volunteer on projects, or a church contact person, there are numerous resources available for you to access. Maybe you want to invite an MDS speaker to your church, or access the field guide, or watch MDS videos, and more. Visit the MDS webpage and look under the Resources tab. Unit and region leadership should contact Volunteer Development to request available training material to use at your unit or region meetings. Staff is continually developing new resources to be available to units and regions. I would like to thank all who participated in our celebration and storytelling today. I would like to thank the program committee and the staff for all of their hard work in the coordination and production of this event. And I would like to thank the volunteers who made these stories possible. Thank you for sharing your time with us at this 2021 MDS Annual Celebration. I will close with this verse from 2 Corinthians 9:7. Every man according to his purposes in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. A wise man once said, "There's nothing more powerful than the heart of a volunteer." The fact of the matter is that God loves a cheerful giver. He loves a volunteer. God wants us to cheerfully volunteer every good thing He has so mercifully allowed us to have, things we often take for granted: our time, our energy, our abilities, our talents, our compassion, our simple smile and hello, all that we have, all that He has cheerfully given to us. Let's bless the Lord and those around us. Thank you, and peace be with you.